Welcome, everyone. My name is Jacob. Thank you for joining me. This is Hunt Detail, and we are now in the month of June, and it's so hard to believe that we are in the midst of summer, and so the next season is fall. And in August, seasons for different game open up, pronghorn and mule deer. In September, of course, elk seasons open up. Some whitetail states, some whitetail seasons open up in different states, and then we get into October and November and all of that, and it's just really starting to get exciting because antler growth is happening. It's when we get to July 4th, I think things are really going to kick off in a month, because you're going to really start seeing what deer or elk or whatever you're hunting are becoming because of antler growth. And so trail cameras and all of that stuff, it's just an exciting time. And we're going to talk today about elk vocalizations and elk calling. And I'm going to say this, that I am not an expert in this area. What I'm going to talk to you about is information that I have gleaned from other true experts. But I want to talk a bit about this as a system, because in the moment, and we've all been there, you have to make decisions, and sometimes you make great decisions and sometimes you don't. And I've watched different YouTube hunts where folks are elk hunting, and they are, in my opinion, in my novice opinion, they are doing it wrong. And I'll share with you some of my thoughts, but they're overcalling. They're actually pushing elk because of the way elk respond to different types of bugles and aggression and that sort of thing. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But again, I'm not the expert, but I think it is important that you have some idea of what you're going to do in the situation, so that you think about the if-then scenario. If then this. If then this. And in doing so, you won't be frozen or paralyzed with fear on what you should be doing. And a lot of pro athletes talk about visualization, and I think other high performers talk about visualization of different things. And I think it's important that you do visualize how you want something to play out, or how you think something will play out. And if you put yourself in that situation mentally, or think through it ahead of time, then I think you're going to be in a much better spot than if you're like, because hope is not a strategy, right? A number of years ago, I went on a pronghorn hunt with a bow, really difficult proposition, and I had really just married myself to the idea that I was going to get a pronghorn buck to come in to my decoy. It was during the pronghorn rut, and this particular buck had a harem, and I was playing my cards perfectly. This was a piece of private land that I had gotten permission on, talked to the brother of the guy, and they were like, yeah, shoot them all. It was great. It was really nice to hear that, even though that wasn't what we were going to do. Saw, these pronghorn on this property, and thought, hey, can I hunt them? And he's like, absolutely. So, got into a position where they were below me. I was up on a ridge, spotted by a doe, I guess. I think that's what they are, a female pronghorn. And she didn't like it, so they sort of skirted up over this saddle in front of me. But really, they came back and bedded almost really close to me, just on the other side I was on one side of a ridge top, and they were a little more on the top, or a little over on the other side of the ridge. And ultimately, I wasn't able to, I saw them what I should have done was had an arrow knocked and just drawn and shot. But I played it differently. I had the decoy in my hand. I didn't have a great plan with what I was going to do with the decoy. The buck came in, but didn't come in close enough, and I really just blew it. And we all blow stalks, and we all blow different things, and you will definitely do it when you're elk hunting. But if I think I wasn't prepared for playing different scenarios, and the truth is if I could do that all over again, I probably would have gotten an arrow. I would have released an arrow at that buck, and who knows? I mean, maybe I would have missed. Maybe I would have hit him. Who knows what have happened? But he was bedded. He didn't. He had no idea what was going on. The does started to be alert, and they stood up. But I just you know. But what happened is I took the learnings from that experience and have applied them to multiple hunts going forward, where I have other ideas of how something can play out, and I have the tools that go with me to do that. And just this past turkey season, I was I think I don't know 9:30 in the morning, 10 in the morning, something like that. Turkeys had come off the roost. They did not come into me, uh, and ultimately I found uh, a tom on a railroad track, and had happened to have uh, a decoy of a tom that allowed me to sort of hide behind. And I got on that railroad track, and he came in, and I shot him at less than, I don't know, maybe 10 yards. And it wasn't the traditional way of what in your mind you're like, okay, I'm going to go in early, I'm going to hear them gobble on the roost, I'm going to set up near them, I'm going to call them in, something like that. It didn't happen. And but this new situation presented itself, and I was able to pivot because I did have this collapsible sort of decoy that worked for that particular situation. And it was a lot of fun. It was a fun hunt, and a nice way to fill a tag. And I've done other things like that where I've had to pivot in the moment and play my cards appropriately, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So that's why we're going to talk about some of those scenarios today. And I think in a lot of ways this does fall into the category of hunt systems, because again, a system is something that's sort of autopilot. You don't have to put a lot of thought into it. We talked about an emergency kit, or your water system, or your food system, or your clothing system. Like, those things are established. And so you're not in the moment like, what do? I don't have a splint, or I don't have a tourniquet. No, you have your kit already, so you do have those things. What do I do in the moment? The bull is with cows, the cows are around them. I don't know how do I pull him in and pull him off of that group. And so before we get into those scenarios, I want to talk a little bit about some elk vocalizations. And so one of them that you'll hear a lot is advertising or location bugle. And this is just sort of a bugle. I'm not going to do this on the podcast, but it's just a bugle that you would hear, that it might have a little bit of emotion behind it, but it's just a bull bugling, just a straight bugle. And what he's trying to do is pull in cows, and maybe telling the other bulls, hey, I'm here, where are you at? Okay, you're there, whatever. But it's an attempt to pull in the cows. It's a little bit like turkeys in the sense that a tom is gobbling and he's pulling in other hens. And so that's what an advertising or a location bugle is at its basic level. An alarm bark, and you can look all of these up. You can Google these or find them on YouTube. But an alarm bark is a sound where an elk is seeing something it doesn't like, and it wants you to reveal yourself and alert the threat to the other elk. It's a very like a quick yo yo, something like that, like a a very quick sound. Now, a challenge bugle is something that does have emotion, where you could tell that someone, it's almost like someone screaming, where there's crackle in their voice, there's anger or aggression. And what a challenge bugle is sort of saying is that, to sort of stay away. Like, this is mine, these are my cows, don't come in. And it's, often maybe hear that with a herd bull communicating to other satellites. And those satellites are hanging around for a cow to peel off. Once a cow is bred, she will, get bred again by other bulls. Oftentimes, she'll peel off of that group, and one of those satellites will breed her as well. And so that's what a challenge bugle is. And then you have chuckling, which, in what I understand of this, again, I am not the expert. What I understand of chuckling is that this bull is looking, is communicating to another bull to come and fight. And this is the problem with this, is that if you have a herd bull and you have satellite bulls, and you'll kill any bull, when you chuckle at the end of your bugle, you're telling those other satellite bulls that you're ready to fight, and those satellite bulls are probably not that interested in fighting, so they're probably going to move a little bit away from where you are. So sometimes when I see folks chuckling on YouTube hunts, I wonder if that's the best idea. And maybe it is when you're, hunting a herd bull and you're close up to a herd bull, and maybe if you're trying to mimic a herd bull and sort of irritate them, maybe that's a good scenario. I don't have any recommendations on that. But another sound is glunking. And this is, excuse me, sort of a hollow sound that is made by bulls when they're tending a hot cow. So if you hear that, now you might not hear bugles and you might not hear a cow, but if you hear the clunking, you know that you're close, and you know that there's, a bull and a cow nearby. Panting is another sort of expression by the bull to a cow. He's excited or frustrated. And then a roundup bugle is a bull speaking to his cows and gathering them to move. And so that's a short, quick sort of bugle. And Joel Turner, who is a really great elk hunter, he founded this thing called Shot IQ, about executing your shots, whether it's on a rifle or with a bow. And he really uses the roundup bugle a lot. And the way he does it is he gets in close to a herd bull and does a roundup as if he's not talking to that bull. He's not bugling to that bull. He's not chuckling to that bull. He ends up getting in close and talks to those cows. And the idea there is that if you do a roundup bugle and you tell all the ladies, you're coming with me, then of course that herd bull is going to come in with an attitude. And that's something that he does. I would encourage you to look up Joel Turner and his approach on that. So those are some of the calls. I will also say, not that you have to be a master on all of these or any of these, but it's good to understand them. And I think that you want to get a sense of what these sounds sound like, so that when you're in the field, you know what's going on and how to respond. Now, I think I'm gonna go ahead and actually just get into some of the scenarios, and I'll give you an opportunity here to sort of think about what you would do. So remember, you have a herd bull and you have satellite bulls, and what's normally happening is that early in the morning, say pre 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, I would guess, the elk may be down low. They may be watering. You have the thermals dropping because of the cold, dark air. The air is falling down the mountain. And so they're down near the bottoms, potentially watering, and they're catching all that scent. Um, and They're catching that scent off the mountain. But as the sun comes up, it's warming the air, and they're going to start moving up to an area to bed. And this is, it could vary space to space. This is all hypothetical, high theoretical, whatever. So they're moving up from the watering area to an area to bed, so that later in the day, as the air warms, it's coming up to them. And so they have potentially an area where they can look down. They have the thermals coming up. They can smell, and they feel safe. Again, this is not an exact science, of course, as we all know. But here's the scenario. So it's September 15th. It's 10 a.m. You're hunting solo. Obviously, if you had someone hunting with you, you would have that caller behind you, roughly 50 yards, to sort of not reveal your location, but you're hunting solo. And the herd bull and the cows are bedded, and there are satellites nearby. So you hear a primary bull sort of in an area, and then around that bull, you feel like, okay, this one's a satellite, maybe this one's a satellite. This is all theory. Even when you're in the field, you're playing out these theories. Like, okay, I think this is the scenario. It's not going to be exact. So you've worked yourself, without calling, into 100 yards of the herd bull. In fact, you see some cows bedded about 70 yards away. And so what are you going to do? So, I mean, you could just wait and see what happens, see if they come your way. You could cow call. Now, you could do one of the calls that we talked about. You could challenge bugle. You could do a roundup bugle, or you could continue to work your way in. And I'd like you to sort of think about that scenario, because it could be a real scenario. How do you want to play your cards there? Do you want any elk, any bull, or any cow for that matter? Do you only want the herd bull? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself. And so, let's say if I want any elk, let's just say I cow call. I could do a cow call. I'm off 100 yards or 70 yards off those cows. I could cow call. And one of the things that Joel Turner, I'll bring him up again, mentions is that he likes to calf call, because a calf call isn't, in his opinion, it's not threatening to a matriarch cow. A matriarch cow elk, if they hear another calf, you could potentially pull a cow in, but a calf call is not threatening to any of those other cows. So they're not going to necessarily want to get up and move, or whatever. It's not threatening to them and their group. But if you cow call or calf call, and you have a satellite bull nearby, he may come in, and he may come in quietly, because he's not there for a fight. He just wants to understand what's going on. He doesn't know where the herd bull is, maybe. And so he's coming in, and that would be a way that you could play that scenario. But there's no guarantees. What you've done, though, is you have revealed your location. You could do a roundup bugle and essentially tell the cows that you're leaving, or that it's time to leave, and that again can tick off the herd bull. But I don't know if you're 100 yards away, if that's close enough. I feel like personally you could do it, and then he could easily round up the cows and take off over the ridge or whatever. You could challenge bugle, where again, so the roundup is you're talking to the cows, and the challenge bugle, and this is something that Corey Jacobson is sort of the master of, is that in the challenge bugle, you are going to bugle over to the other herd bull. So he's bugling, and then you're going to bugle over him, as if to say, "Shut up," or whatever. And you're really challenging. Again, you're challenging him. But at 100 yards, I don't know if you're close enough. You might be, but personally, I almost would want to try to get in a little closer. Now, one of the things that another part of that scenario that you could do is um, you could work in a little closer, do no calling. And what often happens was once the cows are bedded, that herd bull is going to come around and maybe scent check those cows. And so if you're near them, there is a potential where he could come into range and you could get a shot off. Also, if there's water nearby, maybe there's a wallow, then you could potentially get near that to see and see if he may come to get a drink at that point. Talked about a couple different scenarios, and again, I think the key is to think about how you're going to play those in the moment. And your homework coming out of this is to find Joel Turner on YouTube, look at his videos on the Roundup Bugle, just type in Joel Turner Roundup. Look at Corey Jacobson and the Challenge Bugle, and then look at uh, look up Paul Medell and the elk nut, and he gets very nuanced with his elk calling, and it's could be a little overwhelming, quite honestly, because the if then scenario, like one of the things that he'll do is sort of a I think it's a slow play is what he calls it. And so maybe you're in a scenario where you're not hearing elk, you're not seeing elk, you are seeing sign, but you're not hearing them. Maybe it's just too hot, or maybe there's too much pressure. Maybe you're in wolf country. And Paul Medell will do what's called a slow play, where you are acting like your own herd of elk. You're mewing, you're bugling, you're raking a tree, which, quite honestly, I hadn't mentioned, but that's a type of call that you should definitely think of as raking a tree. That's posturing. It's like a bull's posturing for a cow elk. And Paul Medell talks a lot about the slow play and has had some success with that. And that's part of your homework as well, is to look at the slow play and understand that. So again, there's a lot more that we could talk about here, but I think you need to think about this particular scenario where you hear elk talking and you're like, what do I do? And the most natural thing it seems like is that, well, I guess I'll call back. But again, if you are ready to shoot any bull, if you are doing a challenge bugle or chuckling, you may be pushing away satellite bulls. Or if you're not close enough and you do those things, you may push away the herd. And so it's not every herd bull is necessarily wanting to fight. And I think that those are some things that you have to really think about. For me personally, I would rather not call at all. I would rather get in close and get a shot at a satellite or the herd. I don't like to reveal my location. I'd like to play my cards, and then if I don't um, screw it up, I could potentially play that same hand the next day, assuming that those elk are very comfortable and feel safe in that area. Of course, if you're in a high pressure area, it could be a different story where you feel like I got to get this done now. But personally, I would not even call at all. But I do want to go into my elk hunt having all of my options, my Swiss Army knife, if you will, of different scenarios to play. If I want to do a roundup bugle, I want to be able to do that. Or if I want to do a challenge bugle, or if I just want to sound like a calf, I want to have the capability of doing that. So Hope this is helpful. Please, please, please like, share, subscribe. Check out the YouTube Hunt Detail channel and appreciate your all support. All the best.